Well, I thought this could be a fun idea for a video. Last year, I made a video entitled My Top 64 Prospects in the NFL 2022 Draft. I don't know why I wrote it that way. Why not the 2022 NFL Draft instead of the NFL 2022 Draft or the NFL Draft 2022? There were better ways to word it, but regardless, that's the video that I made. And I figured, let's go back now, 1 year removed from that, and see which one of my takes are holding up well and which one of my takes are holding up terribly. There's some of both, so let's get into it. I'm not going to actually watch the whole video, just going to skim through, because, why would I want to watch my own videos? Who would do that? So this is, that's just a chart I did to talk about how much I liked each prospect. And oh no, the video's going down. What's happening here? Okay, we're back. Don't worry, we're back. Here is the list starting from 64. So again, some takes that I think hold up pretty well. I think that having, like Greg Dulcich and Isaiah Likely into Trey McBride conversation, I think is held up. I think that, Dulcich and Likely have both shown flashes. Kenyon Green at 64, he was someone who ended up going 15th to the Texans, but I think that through 1 year, my take is a lot closer than the NFL's take. He had a rough rookie year, to put it lightly, but there still is time. And also someone like Abraham Lucas at 60, who was ended up being a third rounder for Seattle, but actually outplayed Charles Cross at the tackle position. So, those bottom five, I actually feel pretty great about as of right now. You get to some not so great takes. I think Traylon Burks, I think he's shown more than being the 59th overall prospect. Ended up going, what was that, 13th, top 15, around there for the Tennessee Titans. I can't quite remember. It feels like they overdrafted him a little, but I underevaluated him a little. I'm not sure where his exact value is, but probably closer to where they drafted him than where I put him. So I'll call an L on that one. But again, Khalil Shakir, I thought showed some nice things. 57th feels right. Justin Ross ended up going undrafted. I don't know what happened with him. I liked him out of college, but he went undrafted with the Chiefs, and we'll see how that works. He's with the Chiefs now. Maybe he gets some playing time next year. 56, Christian Watson is someone who, probably was too low on. The NFL was a bit higher on him than I was, and I probably should have, I kind of talked about, hey, there's some real issues on his tape, but at the same time, maybe I should have ignored those issues because of his physical abilities. Wide receivers are so hard to predict, though. I'm not going to, hurt myself. I'm not going to, get too torn up over missing a wide receiver prediction just because it's hard. It's hard to predict wide receivers. Nick Bonito, he's an interesting one. So Bonito is someone who, after, he had really good analytics, but when I watched his tape, I was not overly impressed with how he actually got his pressures and stuff. I felt like, okay, yes, the stats are good, but I think that the tape shows that he's kind of, making moves that will not work at the NFL level. So, I wasn't as high on him as the analytics would suggest, but I still felt like, hey, the analytics are interesting enough. I would take sort of a late second round flyer on him and see how that works. But he did not have a good rookie year. Jermaine Johnson at 54 didn't play a lot. Again, he had bad analytics, but I was probably still a bit too low on him potentially. I'll take an L on that one as well because I thought he looked good in the small sample size he had with the Jets. So yeah, okay, moving on to the next grouping here. Let's go to here. We're at 53. You have Trayvon Walker, who was, listen, this was a take that we're just to be determined, right? Did not have a good rookie year, but still, we'll have to wait and see how well it works out. Then you have some players that, I liked, but I would still say are kind of to be determined guys. Chase Garbers, quarterback Neil Farrell, Jalen Amore Davis, and Majai Sanders, none of which have shown much, but it's 1 year. There's still maybe some hope. But as of right now, having them below some of the guys who I had on the last chart doesn't seem as great here. But still, again, it was my list. We'll see what happens with some of those guys. Because I still, I think Sanders could be pretty good. Bailey Zappi. I was higher on Bailey Zappi than others. I had him as a second-round talent. Again, I also had Chase Garbers as a second-round talent. I'm a believer in draft quarterbacks early, even if you don't love them and don't love aspects of their game. But, I feel good about having Bailey Zappi as a second-round talent, given how he played his first year. Kirby Joseph was someone who played very well. You have Leo Chanel, Chad Muma, Kyler Gordon. Those are all players who, I don't know. I don't hate having them around this area of my 64 prospects. Jordan Davis, though, there's going to be a couple that I'm like, what was I thinking there? And Jordan Davis is way too low. Now, I still don't know if he's worth a 13th overall pick, but, I had some concerns about him. I had some concerns about him basically being a one-trick pony, for lack of a better word, but he was great at that one trick. That was kind of my thought with him, but then he went to a team that's all they asked him to do, and it's all they're going to ask him to do, and, sometimes maybe I focus too much on the bigger picture, and I need to focus more on, what do you do well? And he does something so well that, I agreed he was never going to be an 1,000-snap interior defensive lineman. He's still not going to be that guy, but there's still enough value. He's way more important than pick 43. So moving on to the next chart, we have Sam Howell and Desmond Ridder both at the bottom of this. I did not have them as first-round picks. I had them as close to first-round picks, but not first-round picks, top 10 in the second round. And I don't know, the Howell one looks better than the Ridder one right now, but that feels about right for them. Now, Brian Cook, I had a pick 40. He ended up going a little bit later to the Chiefs, who, he showed some flashes. I think another to be determined kind of thing there. Then had a couple of receivers with John Mechie and Sky Moore. Mechie, of course, due to health reasons, was not able to play last year, but I could see him being really good for the Texans. Sky Moore, I think a bit underwhelming as a rookie, I would say, but again, there's time. Travis Jones, I was a big fan of coming out of college. Interior defensive linemen take time to develop, but I'm interested in seeing how he will work. Kenny Pickett is a guy at 36 who I was too low on. Straight up, I was too low on him. And honestly, having him at pick 36 was still a lot higher than some other people did. This is kind of around where the average person had him, I would say. The biggest thing that concerned me was his age. But, hey, he played well his first year in Pittsburgh. Who knows how it's going to work out? But I had I think I was lower on Pickett. He was a pleasant surprise for me in year two. Same thing with Kyle Hamilton, who I was this is the other one. I talked about the Jordan Davis. This one is the one where I'm like, yeah, that stings a little. That everyone was so high on Hamilton, I was lower on him, and then he ended up being awesome. Like, okay, I was wrong. The Ravens, though, what they did was I do think that part of my evaluation was correct, and that there are some flaws in his game. I just think the Ravens did a great job of noticing that, because they're a smart NFL team, and they say, okay, well, we're not going to have you do the things you're bad at. We're going to have you do the things you're good at, and it worked out really well. He was awesome. I believe he was PFF's #1 rated safety as a rookie, so that's pretty impressive. Chris Olave, also probably too low on. I think that he played really well for the Saints, and I had some issues, but those issues have not seemingly shown up in the NFL. Again, wide receiver predictions are hard. Logan Hall, really liked him a lot out of college. I had him at pick 33. He went around here. Might have been exactly 33. I forget, because Tampa Bay traded down and then selected him early in round 2. But I believe it was exactly pick 33 that he ended up going. And, didn't show much as a rookie, but like I said, interior defensive linemen, they take some time. So we'll see how it works. Moving on to the next section here, we have Jaquan Brisker, the safety. We then have Garrett Wilson, who, again, that's too low. I think that maybe Wilson isn't the flashiest wide receiver, but still, he got enough wins that obviously after 1 year feels a bit lower. David Ajabo is someone who is, I would say, still to be determined, right? He obviously had that injury. We just haven't seen much of him, so we'll see how well that one works out. Andrew Booth, again, this is right around where the NFL had him as well. We'll see, how his career progresses. Trevor Penning, another kind of to be determined. He had the injury and then, just barely played. And Drake Jackson, I would say, kind of showed some flashes, but didn't get a ton of playing time. I could see him being really good for the 49ers, though. I was a huge fan of him, but we just haven't seen much from him. Darren Kennard, who the Chiefs drafted, and we never saw a snap from him. So it's kind of unfortunate seeing a lot of these players that some of them I think could be really good, but they just haven't gotten to playing time for whatever reason. George Pickens is at 25. I had him as a first-round talent, so hey, all these wide receiver misses, at least I got one that seemingly is a hit so far. He looked good as a rookie. He looked like a first-round pick as a rookie. Zion Johnson, had him at 24. He felt like the most he's going to be solid player in this draft. I felt pretty confident about that. and he was. Cameron Thomas, who, again, kind of to be determined. I think that he could do some nice things, but we'll have to wait and see. Lewis Cine, the safety that the Vikings drafted at pick 32, is someone who we didn't see. So again, this section, a lot of players are just to be determined, which is one of the issues of doing this just 1 year removed. Really, to get the best results, you'd have to do it 3 or 4 years removed. And even then, you might still, it'll change year in and year out. So the next chart on this list, Trent McDuffie. I had it pick 20. I was high on McDuffie, and he had a really good year. Kare Elam, I was a little bit higher on. Didn't quite have as good of a year, but I thought still showed some things. And again, for rookie corners, it's hard. And Arnold Ebiketie, who was drafted by the Falcons in round 2, I think looked good as a first-year player. Also, Drake London with the Falcons as well. They picked my 17th and 18th highest-rated prospect. Probably too low on London in hindsight. He was someone who I liked a lot, but maybe I should have loved because he looked really good. The Kobe Dean, that was an interesting one. I don't know exactly what happened there. I think there might have even been some health concerns, if I understand. But Nakobe Dean was someone who, he ended up not, just dropping to round 3. Everyone thought he was a first rounder. He dropped to round 3 and just didn't look that, what am I trying to say? He was barely able to get some playing time. It was just a weird situation with Dean. Number 15, Bernard Rainman, who ended up going in round 3, which was surprising to me. I thought he would have been drafted earlier, but he was someone who I kept pounding the table for as a first rounder and a mid-first rounder, and people kind of looked at me like I was crazy, but I think I was proven right. I mean, he was a top 25 rated tackle according to PFF. He was, as a rookie, and he didn't even start the year. I thought that he had a really good rookie season. I've always liked his game, and I'm surprised other people don't agree with me and I think people are starting to come around now that he played well in the NFL, but I was surprised people didn't agree at the time. I thought his tape was good, and I thought that his, I thought that his statistics were good. He wasn't even the first drafted tackle out of his team, weirdly enough. The Buccaneers might want to have that one back. Evan Neal at 14. I was a bit lower on Evan Neal than some other people did due to some issues that I think we saw in his rookie year. I think he'll fix them. I still had him as a top 15 pick, but I kind of felt he was more of a project than people realized, and I think that's coming true as of 1 year in. Devontae Wyatt, again, defensive lineman sometimes takes some time to develop. I'm going to, chalk it up to that because I really loved his college tape. The one thing I remember about him is he was kind of a 1 year wonder, and so that's maybe a bit concerning. He wasn't good for the Packers. I mean, he wasn't terrible, but he could barely get playing time was the weird thing. Malik Willis and Matt Corral, I had pick 11 and 12, but again, it goes back to I value the quarterback position highly. They were both flawed prospects, but at the end of the day, to me, that's worth a 11th or 12th overall pick. Yes, that's, it would suck if you drafted one of them instead of a guy who's probably going to be a starter, but the risk reward there is worth it, in my opinion. So that's why I have them where they're at. Finally, my top 10, I had Jameson Williams at 10, who is a complete wait and see, because he barely played with the Lions. I still have high hopes for him, but we'll see. Tyler Linderbaum, I had him at 9. He went sort of in the back end of the first round to the Ravens, but in hindsight, he should have gone a lot earlier. He was awesome for Baltimore. George Karlaftis, who I was a bit underwhelmed by, but he still showed some flashes with the Chiefs, and I think could certainly blossom into a very good player. Charles Cross at number 7, I was very underwhelmed by. He was just not very good last year. He wasn't a mess. He was definitely a step up from Evan Neal, but I think he could get better. But as of right now, it was a bummer of a first year. I thought he would be better. Akeem Egwuonu, though, he started off the same way as Cross and as Neal, but he, towards the end of the year, did take a step up and got a lot better. So out of the tackles, having him as my first tackle, I feel pretty good about that. Derek Stingley, I thought he showed flashes with the Texans. The overall numbers aren't good, but I thought he showed flashes. I would hold out hope for Stingley. Devin Lloyd, though, what a weird year he had. Few games in, I'm like, here we go. I'm a genius. I predicted Devin Lloyd is going to be awesome. He was so good to start the year, and then I think kind of struggled. I think teams maybe figured out how to attack him a little bit better. I still think he has a talent. He'll figure it out. It's just a little bit difficult. My top 3 now, Kayvon Thibodeau, Ahmad Sauce Gardner, and Aiden Hutchinson. I have to be honest, I love this top 3. I think I nailed it. I think this is, if I had to do a redraft, I think I'm sticking with that top three, right? I guess Kenny Pickett maybe makes his way in there just because of the positional value of quarterback. But even so, I think I nailed it with this top three. I think this is something I feel pretty good about, of the, having Sauce at number 2, which everyone liked Sauce Gardner, but I think saying, no, this guy is the second best prospect in the draft. Turns out I was too low on him. He's probably in a redraft would be number 1 now, but still, having him that high, I feel good about, given the fact that he did fall to 4, which doesn't feel like a fall, but it, in hindsight was, Hutchinson, who ended up not getting drafted first overall. He was drafted second overall. That was a mistake to me. Kayvon Thibodeau, who was drafted at 5th overall, to me, that was, too low as well. So the fact that all 3 of those guys, played as well as they did makes me feel better about my predictions. So how do I feel about my top 64 prospects? If reevaluating myself, I actually feel pretty good about it. Listen, you're going to have some misses, but what I like about it is I don't have a ton of what I feel like are misses in terms of I was way too high on a prospect. There's a couple in there for sure, but the misses you want to have are the ones where you're too low on players. Because as much as the Kyle Hamilton miss definitely stings, the reality is not drafting Kyle Hamilton and drafting someone else instead is not as big of a deal as if you drafted someone who ended up being a bust, right? Getting the 15th best player instead of the 7th best player isn't good, but it's better than getting the 30th best player, or the 100th best player with the 15th overall pick. That's kind of the way that I view it. And so risk assessment is a real thing and something that teams should pay attention to. Sometimes it's not about making sure you get the best player. Sometimes it's about making sure you get a good player. But there's some misses in here, some things you could point to. If you're a hate watcher, there's plenty of material here for you. But I think there's some, I feel pretty good about my top 64 prospects of 2022. You can't hit them all. I hit enough for me to be happy. But what do you guys think? Am I stupid? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.